I know that there's a prophecy about a war called Gog and Magog. From life, I can feel that this war is happening within me all the time. Can you explain more about these two forces, Gog and Magog? And what happens to them in this internal war and where it's leading? First of all, I'm very happy that she's talking about internal things. Gog and Magog is an internal war. It's like the strife between Moses and Pharaoh. We, specifically Jews, are opposite alien forces that are threatening us, and within us too. We're at the same war, and the people of Israel too, with its ego that conquered us after the ruin of the temple. And each and every one of us is in that perpetual war. But now, especially, we've completed the period of the exile, and we have to rise from that level of exile to redemption. We are pretty much behind already. We should have started this spiritual ascension when we returned to Israel about 100 years ago. And then begins this war of Gog and Magog, which is the last war between the forces, the good forces in us, that want to achieve bestowal and love of others, brotherly love, love the friends of self, and these forces that still keep us in exile and don't let us out. The internal forces in each of us, the forces in the nation, there are bodies that still think that we should remain in exile, and also in the whole world. So this war is indeed, as you say, is a perpetual war, and now it exists in each of us. And in the end, the whole world, with the globalization today and the crisis, and ecology and education and security, it's all in this Gog and Magog war. Let's hope that we will succeed in it without an eruption of corporal war, but we will complete it and finish it at the spiritual level. This is why the wisdom of Kabbalah is emerging today. It's presenting itself to everyone, and through it we can succeed with the forces of bestowal and love, with the upper light that will correct all of us, so we will succeed in this campaign. You talked about how if we win this war at the spiritual level, then it won't come to the corporal level. Can you explain it? Sounds a little revolutionary. First of all, when we're talking about Gog and Magog, we're talking about prophecies, the end of days. We're talking about terrible wars, right? Well, they will happen, but at which level? The spiritual or the corporal? I want to explain. Everything that happens in this world, if we could see it inside and wage this war and complete it as an internal struggle between the good and evil forces within us, yes, within man. These egoistic forces opposite the forces of giving and love. If we could succeed, and how can we succeed? Only through studying Kabbalah, because it's the only means that brings us the light that reforms. The spiritual force by which we can succeed, by which we can defeat our ego. Then we would complete this campaign at the spiritual level, emotional, conceptual in our desires. We would end it there. But if we're failing and where we're not succeeding in the spiritual level, we have to decline to the spiritual corporal level. We don't have a choice. These forces come down and come down, because if we succeed at a certain level, that's where we end the war. But if we fail, it comes lower and lower down to matter until a war breaks out, God forbid, in the physical war, and then we end up in a war just like the wars we had in the last 60 years. And there's no choice. Why is there no choice? Because we failed to wage this war in the spiritual world. Baal Salam wrote around 1920 that he came to the land of Israel to change the situation here because he predicts a Holocaust in Europe. He was already thinking about it. He could see it happening. And if we don't rise to a level where we defeat this evil there, it'll happen as regrettably it did happen. And that's how it was with all the wars in Israel. If we could deal with them at the spiritual level, of course, at the corporate level, our neighbors wouldn't attack us, and they would even treat us well. All of a sudden, they would become cousins. And why are you not? Why not the whole world be like that? Baal HaSulam writes at the end of the introduction to the book of Zohar that if we can defeat this war internally through studying Kabbalah, when we draw the light that reforms and defeat the evil in us, and then present the correction method to the whole world, then everyone, it says, and all the nations shall flow on to him. They would respect us and sustain us. It's the opposite of what's happening today. That's very interesting, what you're saying, especially that now in the political state we're in a mess, pretty much, like at a dead end. Today I heard that the arrangement with Palestinians, because they've come to all kinds of issues they can't resolve, the Americans are offering to present it for 5 years so as to not decide now for dividing Jerusalem or not. And there's a feeling that everything is going into a new dead end in the tension. And the drill that we had today in Israel, there's sounds of war in the horizon. And what you're suggesting is, well, it's not me. The wisdom of Kabbalah talks about it. The greatest Kabbalists all through the generations talked about it. And they were also talking about it today, that it should happen today. Every time Israel is in some corporal plight, it's because we could not prevent it and correct it at the spiritual level. The beautiful thing about what you're suggesting is that no one should wait for anyone else. Right? You don't have to be the Minister of Defense or the Prime Minister to take this spiritual solution. I can watch the program now and fight, wage this war within me and win this war internally. Everyone should say that he determines the world to a scale of merit. Every single person does a great thing with it. And what? And if more and more people are like that, does that determine the scale, even in corporeality? Yes, and not many people. Why not? Because the world is a pyramid. The billions of people that exist in the world is a mass that's considered inanimate. They don't know why and what for, and they're very far from these things. But specifically Jews, and even a small part of the Jews, if only a small part of the Jews understood that and joined this process of struggling with the inner evil, then we would succeed in corporeality too. And in the physical world, we would succeed.